All right, peace and blessings, all praises to the Most High. I want y'all to watch this video of a white European who calls himself an Afrikaner explain and justify why there is a all-white town, basically a sundown town on the continent of Africa, namely in South Africa. Just watch this and I'll be back with some commentary for you.
Question, oh, why can't a black person come here? Is not the right question. It's more a question like a marriage between two people. It's an exclusive affair. Doesn't mean you're against anyone else. You take your wife, she's important to you.
Yep.
Or you know, and in your wedding, in your marriage, you're exclusive. Doesn't mean it's not built on hate. It's built on love for our culture. We want to preserve our culture. We want to preserve our traditions, our faith, our language. These are the things that we want to preserve.
But someone might ask, if you want to preserve your culture, you're preserving your culture on a land that belongs to South Africans.
The land here, we bought, we paid for it.
From who?
Well, at that stage, we bought it from the previous owner, which was the government, right?
But I don't think an African can leave Africa, go to Europe, and say that we just bought this land and no one is allowed to come in.
Our name is Afrikaners. Our language is Afrikaans. Right. So we feel part of this continent, and maybe people don't agree, but I don't have another home. Obviously I know that I have European roots.
Yeah.
400 years ago.
Yeah.
For 400 years, my people have been here.
Yeah.
I love Africa. I don't want to live anyplace else. I feel a part of this continent. My language grew, obviously from Dutch, but it grew on this continent.
With all the monuments that I see in here, would you agree with me if I said this man performed a lot of atrocities in the past?
Well, I think obviously these are controversial figures, and I think the fact that we put them here in Orania with our own funding, some people are uncomfortable in the rest of South Africa to care for them, to see them in public, because this is on private land, private funds, and it's our history.
But I know it's your history, but at the end of the day, a lot of people were harmed in the process. You don't think if you are embracing this, you're definitely embracing apartheid?
Is it okay to celebrate Shaka Zulu leader? You know who that is?
I know who Shaka Zulu is.
A lot of people. Is it fine to celebrate him?
That's a question for South Africans.
That is a question. This is a question for Oranians.
He was more like the architect for apartheid. Do you agree with that?
I agree with the fact that he implemented a lot of policies in the apartheid era.
You don't think it's because of this that's why people have problems with it? It's because so many South Africans are not happy with this history, even though it's part of them. But I believe, like you just said, let the past be past. I mean, we can never forget our history. But I mean, I feel like this being here, it's more like a, what do you call it? Like a sword in the eyes of the people of South Africa.
I don't think so.
Do you believe that whatever you guys are practicing here is racism?
I do not believe that we are practicing racism. To tell you the truth, I've said it many times that if the question is, are there racists in Orania, I can assure you there are. There are racists in every town in South Africa, and every country in the world you'll find racists. That is a fact. The Orania model is a model of cultural preservation, and that is not racist. So you might disagree with me, but my personal belief, my honest belief, is that the Orania model is not racist at all. It is, however, a model to preserve something that we hold dear and to create a future where we can live our values, our religion, our language, and share our culture.
If you check when South Africa gained independence, if you check the coat of arms of South Africa, it said there is unity in diversity. Orania is within South Africa, but at the end of the day, I believe what you are practicing in here is not unity in diversity.
I beg to differ.
Can you explain that?
How can there be any diversity in South Africa if cultures are not allowed to be themselves? How can there be any diversity at all? If everyone is the same, there's no diversity. If you have a cultural community and you have the Xhosa people or the Barulong people, and they also embrace their identity, and from a standpoint of knowing who you are, of being proud of your culture, of embracing who you are, you get to a point of self-confidence where you then can put out your hand and say, without anyone forcing us, I can build a diplomatic relationship with this and this, and we can do it on our own terms, community to community. That's unity and diversity. To just write it on a coat of arms doesn't mean anything. To live it by creating your own identity. Identity is needed for diversity. Without identity, there is no diversity. Listen, what you're not going to get in Orania is people falling on their knees, continuously saying sorry for their history. A lot of people apologized on our behalf for everything, and there's a lot of internal Afrikaner friction about that. But in Orania, you will find solutions. Maybe it's not the nice cherry on top stuff, people feel warm in their hearts, Orania is so nice to us, but you will find long-term solutions in terms of labor policies, in terms of community-to-community relationships, and in terms of the way we think.
All right. There you see it. A classic example of what some people call, I'm white and I say so. Like the young brother was giving him all these facts, all of these counterpoints to him and his people having an all-white town in a country that is about 90% African. And just the way he started off the conversation highlights and details the trickery and deceit that was used to even be in that position today. We all know the colonization, the apartheid of Africa, and not only that, the colonialization of the whole world, basically, by Europeans. You heard them say, well, we've been here for 400 years, and, I don't know anything. Yeah, that is when the colonialism started. That is when Africans and Asians and Native Americans welcomed the European in with open arms, say, here, let us show you this, let us show you that. Then they brought the gun and started wiping people out, like we'll talk about. But he talking about it's a marriage. When you have a marriage, it's exclusive. You want to be with your wife. It's not that you're against anybody, but you just want your own, as he was mentioning, the identity. Your own identity, your own culture, right? And so listening to that, I definitely want people to understand, because a lot of Black people, white Africans, whatever, have what they call white validation and white approximation and white appreciation. They want to be validated by white people, want to be appreciated by white people, and want to live close with them, interact with them. But you see the nature of this man, like, nah, we don't want to be around nobody else but us. And when you do that, when you try to infiltrate, when you try to go to their schools and things like that, that's why we see a lot of the stuff that we see. But that's a whole nother conversation. But he also says that, his family bought the land from the owners. Like, this is our land. We bought this land, and, we are owners of this land. The young man said, who did you buy it from? He said, the government. Now, mind you, the government has been ruled by Europeans since they came over and started slaughtering and stealing, pillaging, and all of those things, right? So basically, he bought the land from somebody who stole it, basically. The government is not a real thing. There's actual people in that government. A lot of them are corrupt. But the young man made a great point. He said, I can't go to Europe and go over there and buy some land and tell the Europeans that nobody else can come on the land, right? And then he switched. Once again, he didn't answer that question. Well, he said, I'm Afrikaners, and this land is Afrikaans. They done came over there, and I remember learning about that in high school, but I wasn't too sharp as I am now. So basically, they changed the name of themselves. Oh, no, we're not Africans, we're Afrikaners, and the land is Afrikaans. Just, I'm white and I say so. Moving the goalposts. Talking about for 400 years, his family has been there. Now, then they moved to the monuments. Now, the monuments are on this land. Those monuments are equal to, maybe like Hitler putting a a monument of Hitler in, Jerusalem, putting a, a statue of, General Lee or Confederate general in, an all black neighborhood. Though that is what those statues amount to. And those statues are, like King Leopold, who, slaughtered millions of Africans. And I don't even know who those other people, but he said, well, this guy right here, he made he was very instrumental in establishing apartheid. Apartheid is nothing but racism in Africa, basically. And well, he did implemented a lot of policies that, this, that, and the other. And then he goes to just babbling. Like, I don't even remember what he said in response to that question. But yeah, he says, y'all celebrate Shaka Zulu, don't you? He doesn't answer the question. He kind of flips it on the young man. The young man stayed sharp, and he was like, look, these monuments are like swords in the eyes of the people. I don't think so. I don't believe that we're practicing racism. Just all the I'm white and I say so-ism in the world, and then he goes to talk about, well, you can't have diversity if people are not together, and, we got to establish unity and this, that, and the other. And, unity and diversity and identity means you establish your identity, and then we'll come together, and then we'll shake hands. Remember, that's how y'all got the land in the first place. So I found it amazing to me, that man, these people will have the nerve to have an all-white town. And I hear about, certain parts of Africa, South Africa, where, blacks are being mistreated by, the Afrikaners and the Chinese and all the people who are colonizing Africa to this day. And it's almost like, over here where, they get to do whatever they want to and then, explain it away, with law. Where we're going to, implement some labor policies. Labor policies means, okay, we tell you when and where you can't work. We implement this and that and the other. So, I just thought this was interesting to share because in 2025, in the year of our Lord, even in Africa, we have what we would call in America sundown towns, places where blacks can't go or are not welcomed. And so I don't think anywhere on this earth that, we can go and say, okay, well, now we're going to set up this place and you're not welcome to come here. And so shout out to the man. I don't know, that young man, but I definitely applaud him for standing on his ground and exposing this, because he's like, we bought this land and, pretty much this is our land and, we can pretty much do what it is we want to. And if we don't want you here, you shouldn't come here. That's what basically he said. But once again, I want people to realize that, because like I was just listening to a scholar. He was saying the same thing. Black people have this affinity to want to be accepted, want to be validated, want to be appreciated, and want to be in proximity of white people. And we have to understand that they don't want the same. No matter how much, sometimes they smile. And then once again, I'm not saying all, but once again, we see these different instances, just like I just did a story of a little black girl in elementary school who's the only black girl in her class, and she's been mistreated since the day that she started. So, but her mother feels that was a good place to put her child because the school, has some sort of, I guess, good reputation. But, now we see that, that may have not been the best place for the child. So, please be mindful of that when you're trying to find a place or you're trying to find some investment property. As we see our sister Tiffany down there in Georgia, her and her father are experiencing a lot of hardship because they bought some farmland, and it looks like the other fellow farmers don't want them around. And so they've been burning property and a lot of different things. But just keep this in mind. Yeah, today in South Africa, there is an all-white town. Y'all look it up. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this conversation in the comments. 919-587-7782. Thank y'all for watching. Peace and blessings. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Peace and blessings.